Today is a day where we celebrate justice, equity, and accessibility.
Today is a day where we celebrate resources, accountability, and empowerment.
Today is a day where we celebrate
the Time for 9 Toolkit. Welcome to the Time for 9 Toolkit virtual launch live stream. The Time for 9 Toolkit is a campaign envisioned and executed by the Greater Good Initiative's Public Health Policy Team.
The Greater Good Initiative is a youth-led, youth-run, nonpartisan policy think tank.
Here at the Greater Good Initiative, we have 5 sectors: education, economic, environmental, civil rights, and, of course, public health.
Let's learn a little bit more about who we are. Hey everyone! My name is Tarina Ahuja.
And my name's Adam Ashley, and we're the co-founders of
the Greater Good Initiative. Here's our leadership team. Say hi, guys. We are
effective,
innovative,
practical,
nonpartisan,
youth-led.
The Greater Good Initiative is a youth policy think tank working to create
sustainable policy solutions tackling the nation's most pressing issues.
We are writing these policies
and advocating them to our
local,
state,
and federal legislators
to push for active change
and youth engagement
in all levels of government,
for sustainable policy,
for thoughtful solutions, for a better world.
Join us.
Be a part of the movement. We are
the Greater Good.
The Greater Good.
The Greater Good Initiative.
Today, we have an incredible program planned. First, we'll hear more details on the Time for 9 Toolkit and what it is. We'll hear from public officials and community organizations that have endorsed us, and then we'll have an interactive section involving some advocacy and how you can get involved with the Time for 9 Toolkit.
In just a minute, you'll hear from our incredible public health policy directors, Margot Matheson and Olivia DiGiulio. But before that, let's hear a little bit about what Time for 9 Toolkit means to us.
Time for 9 Toolkit is inspiring.
Time for 9 Toolkit is equity.
Time for 9 Toolkit is led by the youth.
The Time for 9 Toolkit is crucial.
Time for 9 Toolkit is caring.
Time for 9 Toolkit is justice.
Time for 9 Toolkit is empowering.
The Time for 9 Toolkit is indispensable.
The Time for 9 Toolkit is hope for the future.
Time for 9 Toolkit is essential.
Time for 9 Toolkit is for all of us.
Without further ado, let's pass it on to Margot and Olivia.
Hi, my name is Margot Matheson.
And my name is Olivia DiGiulio, and we are the co-directors of the Public Health Policy Team here at GGI. Today, we're going to tell you about our most recently launched campaign, the Time for 9 Toolkit.
The COVID-19 pandemic has illuminated common threads in public health sectors across the United States.
Communities of color, most prominently Black and Hispanic communities, those in congregate living situations, essential workers, and homeless populations consistently experience COVID-19 related challenges at disproportionate rates, including greater instances of job and housing insecurity, limited access to testing, media misinformation, and higher rates of death due to COVID-19 complications.
COVID-19 has impacted Black and Hispanic Americans more than any other demographic group. Nationally, Black Americans make up a larger share of COVID-19 hospitalizations than their share in the population and experience the highest mortality rate for COVID-19.
The virus is more likely to spread in densely populated areas, where members of racial and ethnic minorities are more likely to live. Additionally, risk of infection may be greater for workers in essential industries.
Many people in minority communities are more likely to be uninsured, work in essential services, take public transportation, lack access to protective gear, and have pre-existing health conditions that all increase their risk for COVID-19.
Not only is COVID-19 exacerbating the systematic racial disparities in the American healthcare system, but it is also targeting those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. People of color are disproportionately affected by economic inequalities as well, making it even more important to aid minority communities in the fight against COVID-19.
While these public health inequities are prevalent throughout the nation, they unfold differently across states and localities.
A public health crisis as unprecedented as the COVID-19 pandemic demands that policymakers, community leaders, and the greater public embrace adaptability, resilience, and the capacity to collaborate for the common good.
However, the approach is not a one-size-fits-all.
To most efficiently aid minority and low-income communities, a combination of factors that each contribute to the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 must be addressed.
The Time for 9 Toolkit aims to empower elected officials to effectively address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on minority and socioeconomically disadvantaged communities by uplifting successful models of equity-focused testing protocols, community and government partnerships, communication strategies, and resource allocation in cities and states across the country.
Our public health team is here to tell you all about the toolkit and campaign.
First, we suggest that cities strategically position testing locations to most equitably and effectively serve their populations. Because COVID-19 disproportionately impacts marginalized communities, cities should also pay extra attention to undeserved neighborhoods and open extra testing sites there if necessary. In order to provide testing for as many individuals as possible, cities should assign different hours to different testing sites so that individuals with inflexible schedules can reliably find testing. Testing sites should also be located near public stations so that individuals without cars can find testing conveniently. Additionally, cities should consider how people with disabilities can access testing services. Those with disabilities tend to be at higher risk to COVID-19 due to chronic conditions or because they require hands-on help that prevent them from being able to practice social distancing. Because drive-through testing sites might not accommodate all disabilities, we recommend locating walk-up or mobile testing near handicap-accessible public transportation. Cities could also consider establishing services to transport people with disabilities to testing sites or bring testing to the homes of people with disabilities, as the City of Houston has already done.
Secondly, we recommend that cities provide COVID-19 testing options that do not require the presentation of government-issued ID, health insurance, or other traditional administrative processes. While recognizing that paperwork and identification help testing sites schedule tests and administer them to the correct people, we see the need to limit any administrative processes that may serve as barriers to getting tested. Members of minority communities disproportionately lack government-issued IDs, and roughly 8.5% of Americans were uninsured throughout 2018. Although many states offer free forms of identification, the process to obtain a free ID can still be financially burdensome due to transportation and administrative costs. To expand access to testing, some localities and organizations have either broadened the range of acceptable ID or eliminated ID and health insurance requirements. Alternatively, cities can partner with organizations that offer testing free of administrative processes, a path the City of Phoenix has taken with the Equality Health Foundation, an organization that offers free testing to participants who are not asked to provide ID or proof of insurance.
Our third testing point advises cities in establishing equity-conscious contact tracing departments. Identifying infected individuals and incidents of transmission is essential in combating COVID-19, and city officials must have familiarity with all neighborhoods in order to contact trace effectively. To achieve this, we suggest that cities purposefully hire contact tracing officers from all neighborhoods and assign them to work in their respective areas. Additionally, we propose that cities use all resources possible to assist infected individuals in seeking quarantine, especially those who depend on day-to-day paychecks. Ensuring that everybody has the ability to comply with healthcare guidelines will help to prevent transmission.
Historically, there is a distrust within minority communities in the American healthcare system, which traces back to years of racial health inequities. In many of these communities, reliable information comes from those who are trusted and respected. The messenger of this crucial information matters. This issue is very real, as countless doctors and health experts have stated that if distrust among minority communities continues, it could have serious consequences for the spread of the virus and when a vaccine emerges. Therefore, state and local governments should create relationships with trusted leaders in minority communities to ensure that credible information about COVID-19 is spread. Local officials can create these relationships with church leaders, local store owners, community officials, influencers, trusted officials, and government leaders. The lack of credible information regarding preventative measures, symptoms, and treatment options for COVID-19 is proving to be detrimental among minority communities. By creating these relationships, localities can play a part in fixing this communication gap, which will greatly help communities.
In the past 2 months, states have been working tirelessly to provide organizations and hospitals with adequate testing and protective materials. With the lack of collaboration between states and organizations, third-party companies and laboratories face the brunt of healthcare dilemmas. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to devastate millions of lives nationwide, testing packages are necessary to decrease the spread of the virus. However, due to the lack of funding, states and cities fail to provide enough testing materials to their own citizens. States and cities can take the first step of procuring more funding by trying to contact local hospitals and relief organizations. To obtain such partnerships, local governments can start initiatives and fundraisers to increase grants and opportunities available to acquire necessary funding. States need to work with COVID-19 organizations that can increase testing, PPE distribution, and necessary services such as language services. With the aid of laboratories and a decrease in faulty equipment, states can finally see an increase in walk-in testing and help better contain the virus. To tackle the spread of this pandemic, it is necessary to collectively pool resources and to aid hospitals and testing laboratories.
Our third recommendation addresses communication inequalities in minority communities. These inequalities have the potential of hindering public efforts in preventing and addressing the spread of COVID-19. When creating communication messages and implementing various communication strategies relating to COVID-19, it is important to remember that communication efforts must be tailored to different groups who may vary in their socioeconomic status, culture, or education. Different groups may utilize different media outlets, speak in different languages, or cannot adhere to standard COVID-19 messaging due to work or close living quarters. Safety messages and COVID-19 information must be communicated on various media outlets to ensure that a diverse array of people are routinely being exposed to critical health information. Additionally, local and state governments must provide multilingual and culturally inclusive educational efforts on these media outlets. Localities should distribute effective messages, which includes visual ads and simple instructions that is then shared to these communities by trusted sources. This recommendation also suggests that local governments focus on spreading information on how those living in crowded living areas or working in essential services can stay safe from the virus. Standard stay-at-home messaging may not be adequate for those that live in tight living spaces or have no option but to go to work every day. Instead, information on how to stay safe at work by washing your hands and wearing a mask should be stressed. Local and state governments must understand that improving communication efforts within minority communities will prove to be essential in slowing the spread of the virus and helping those who are most impacted.
Due to the fact that the pandemic has caused most Americans to quarantine inside of their homes, many of the at-risk population has become rightfully weary about entering the outside world. To combat this, many financially able Americans have been online shopping for everyday items, including groceries. However, for these relying on government-issued food stamps, online grocery shopping has been particularly difficult. Since the start of the outbreak, legislation has been passed in order to increase the number of states and grocery stores that accept online food stamp payments. However, for many communities of color who are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, such stores may not be as accessible. Therefore, Time for 9 calls for remaining states to allow online food stamp payments while also encouraging states that have already implemented online food stamps to push grocery stores in Black and brown communities to pass federal regulation in order to be able to accept payments via online food stamps. Expanding the amount of retailers in minority communities that accept online food stamp payments can be a potential crucial step in the fight to decrease food insecurity in communities of color during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Our unhoused communities face a drastic risk of contracting and dying from COVID-19. Sheltering in place is impossible for the over 500,000 Americans experiencing homelessness. Due to pre-existing health conditions and limited access to nutritious food, hygiene, sanitation, and healthcare, unhoused individuals have a more difficult time accessing necessary health resources. Compared with the general population, homeless individuals who contract COVID-19 are twice as likely to be hospitalized, 2 to 4 times more likely to require critical care, and 2 to 3 times more likely to die. The risk is even greater for Black Americans. Among all other racial groups, Black Americans experience homelessness at the most disproportionate rate, followed by Native American and Alaska Native individuals. To mitigate the health risks homeless individuals face amid the COVID-19 pandemic, state and local governments should pursue opportunities to provide unused hotel rooms and other spaces made available through COVID-19 closures to homeless populations. Even if used as temporary sheltering, safely distanced shelters are tremendously beneficial. Crowded living spaces have been linked to tuberculosis, respiratory infections, and psychological stress. Sheltering in distanced hotel rooms minimizes individuals' risk of developing respiratory conditions that could increase their susceptibility to contracting COVID-19. As states and localities consider how to provide immediate shelter for their homeless residents, it is critical that they advance long-term solutions, aiding individuals on an interpersonal and a structural level. Interpersonally, connecting those sheltering in hotels with case managers can disrupt cycles of substance abuse, uplift mental health, services, employment, and affordable housing. Structurally, establishing public housing acquisition programs often expedites the process of securing public housing in comparison with new construction. Utilizing flexible funds to expand affordable housing in high-opportunity neighborhoods supports housing and economic mobility for low-income individuals.
The history of housing in the United States is plagued by structural racism, and the effects of racist housing policies have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis. After decades of disinvestment, once redlined neighborhoods have higher poverty rates, lower performing schools, more segregation, lower social mobility, fewer parks, higher gentrification rates, lower quality walking and biking infrastructure, and fewer healthy food outlets than non-redlined neighborhoods. All of the aforementioned factors harm residents' overall health, making them disproportionately susceptible to contracting COVID-19. Due to fewer opportunities to achieve upward mobility and biased treatment in the pursuit of rental housing, Black and Hispanic renters are among the most likely to suffer economic devastation due to the pandemic. Following the 2007 housing market crisis, these renters were overwhelmingly harmed and recovered from financial hardship at a slower rate. If programs to assist financially vulnerable renters are not implemented, the COVID-19 crisis will likely impose similar hardships. Compared with homeowners, renters commonly have lower incomes and savings, lower access to credit, less job stability, and a history of facing greater challenges and paying for their housing costs. It is critical that minority and economically disadvantaged communities are prioritized in rental assistance policies whenever possible. The CARES Act currently offers direct rental assistance to renters whose landlords have federally backed mortgages, but for most renters, they are ineligible to receive this assistance. In order to protect renters who cannot receive direct rental assistance from the CARES Act, particularly young renters, Black and Hispanic renters, and socioeconomically disadvantaged renters, the Time for 9 Toolkit recommends that states and cities consider successful rental assistance models that most effectively respond to the needs of renters in the localities they serve.
Let's hear it in the comments section for the Public Health Policy Directors and the Public Health Policy team for their amazing work on the Time for 9 Toolkit. We're now going to take this opportunity to hear from some phenomenal public office holders and community organizations that have endorsed the Time for 9 Toolkit. The first of which is Carrie Coyner, representing the 62nd District of Virginia, covering Chesterfield, Chester, Enon, Hopewell, and Prince George in the Virginia House of Delegates.
Hi, I'm Delegate Carrie Coyner, proudly representing the 62nd District in the House of Delegates in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Today, I'm excited to share with you a project that the Greater Good Initiative has put together to support elected officials and communities across the country. The Greater Good Initiative is a youth-led, bipartisan policy think tank helping to research and study policy issues that are important to communities across the country. The one I'd like to highlight for you today is the Time for 9 Toolkit. The Time for 9 Toolkit is a simple public service announcement style tool. It's composed of 9 things that we can do to stop the spread of COVID in minority communities, and specifically looking at lower income communities across the country. The Time for 9 Toolkit breaks down those 9 policy initiatives into 3 areas: testing, communications and partnerships, and resources for citizens. I appreciate this simple yet research-driven policy toolkit that we can use. I encourage my fellow elected officials, both local, state, and federal, check out Greater Good Initiative, and hopefully you will find great use for their Time for 9 Toolkit as well. Have a great day.
I have the incredible honor of announcing that Delegate Lashrecse Aird has officially endorsed the Time for 9 Toolkit. Delegate Aird proudly represents Virginia's 63rd House District, which includes parts of the cities of Petersburg and Hopewell, as well as parts of the counties of Chesterfield, Prince George, and Dinwiddie. Delegate Aird has been such an incredible advocate for equity, accessibility, and justice here in the Commonwealth, and we are so honored and grateful to have her on board. Thank you, Delegate Aird.
We will now be hearing from Suhas Subramanyam, representing the 87th District of Virginia, covering Prince William and Loudoun in the Virginia House of Delegates.
Hi everyone, this is Delegate Suhas Subramanyam talking about the Time for 9 Toolkit, which is 9 best practices for localities and states to implement policies that make COVID-19 testing more accessible and equitable for economically disadvantaged people and marginalized communities. The best part about it is it's really easy. You can just visit the greatergoodinitiative.com/time-for-9 toolkit. That's 9 is in the numeral, and you can just check it out. It includes testing equity, communication partnerships, and resources for disadvantaged communities. This is fantastic, so please check it out, and we fully support it. Thank you.
We will now be hearing from Marla Dalton of the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases.
Hello, I am Marla Dalton, Executive Director and CEO of the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, or NFID. Today, I'm pleased to endorse the Time for 9 Toolkit by the Greater Good Initiative. Minority communities have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this campaign aims to help address the issues head-on and help find solutions. Through actions by legislators, we can help provide more testing to those who may not have been able to get tested, create government-community partnerships to build relationships and provide effective communication channels, and allocate additional resources to affected cities and states to ensure equal access to important public health measures. I hope that you'll join me in supporting this important initiative and helping to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Next, we will be hearing from the wonderful Cecily Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is the Director for Diversity and Inclusion at Virginia Tech's College for Architecture and Urban Studies. She is also the Manager of Applied Research at the School of Public and International Affairs, and in addition, she is adjunct faculty at the Center for Public Administration and Policy. We can't wait to see what she has to say.
My name is Cecily Rodriguez. I'm a teacher and researcher in the School of Public and International Affairs at Virginia Tech, and I serve as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the College of Architecture and Urban Studies at Tech. It's clear now more than ever before that the long-lasting inequities in our society impact communities' abilities to cope with emergencies of all kinds. I see the Time for 9 as an important tool for guiding localities and states on how they can integrate equitable approaches to COVID-19 response and recovery efforts. The recommendations outlined here provide practical strategies for addressing the upstream factors of health and wellness as a way to mitigate illness in vulnerable communities and for vulnerable people. Although every single recommendation noted is critical in the short and long term, I want to highlight the importance of considering the ways in which we must support and protect Latinx communities, and moreover, all communities who are English language learning. These communities are disproportionately represented in the essential workforce and in the impact of the virus itself. Yet very few, if any, localities are set up with language supports to fully support testing, tracing, treatment, and social support needs. Your elected officials have the power to make these recommendations a reality in your community. You can actively make a difference by contacting them and insisting that they support these 9 necessary and important recommendations now. It is really up to our young people to lead the charge and transform the way we approach complex issues in our country. We are counting on you all to get involved, and one great way to start is to support the Time for 9 campaign. Thank you.
The Time for 9 Toolkit is people-powered, which means we need you, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, your friends, your teachers, everyone, to email, call, tag, tweet at all of our legislators and decision makers so we can see some of these policies implemented. This is why it is my honor to introduce our Public Health Advocacy Director, Elizabeth Nguyen, to take us through a little bit about what we can do right now to start making some change.
Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Nguyen and I'm the Director of Public Health Advocacy here at GGI. Thank you all so much for your tremendous support for the Time for 9 Toolkit these past few weeks. We are so grateful for every like, comment, share, and message that we've received in favor of Time for 9. We would like to ask one very small favor of our viewers here at the launch event today. If you could take out your phones and type in bit.ly/Time for 9 templates, there are several action items you could do right now to further spread the word about Time for 9. First, you'll see a short and sweet Twitter template that we've pre-written ready for you to send. Just click the tweet template button on our website, at your legislators, and press tweet. How easy is that? If you have more time, please consider making a quick 30 or 45-second call or email your legislators asking for them to take action by supporting and endorsing Time for 9. You can find templates for both calls and emails on the same page at bit.ly/Time for 9 templates. Again, thank you all so much for tuning into our live stream today. A quick 30 to 45-second call or a simple tweet to your legislator is all that it takes for you to make a difference in your community and to make your voice heard.
My name is Hamel Haley and I'm a Public Health Policy Fellow as well as one of the Time for 9 Toolkit campaign leaders here at GGI.
Hi, my name is Mary Faith Everman and I'm one of the leaders for the Time for 9 Toolkit campaign.
In the future, the Greater Good Initiative will continue spreading the word about Time for 9 and hopes to see it implemented in some way, shape, or form in localities nationwide. In order to reach these goals, we will be partnering with various organizations, Time for 9 Toolkit ambassadors, as well as representatives directly involved in the legislative process.
As the COVID-19 pandemic continues, the usage of the Time for 9 Toolkit is more imperative than ever. However, in order to see progress, we need all of your help. Speak your mind and let your voices be heard by contacting your local representatives and ask them to support Time for 9 today.
We are extremely grateful that you decided to join us today for the Time for 9 Toolkit virtual launch livestream. The Time for 9 Toolkit is crucial in ensuring that disadvantaged communities that have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19 have accessible and equitable resources and testing in the COVID-19 world. And there's plenty of ways that you, watching right now, can get involved in the Time for 9 Toolkit and the Greater Good Initiative.
We can't wait to get you involved. At GGI, you can apply to be a fellow. Fellows are vital and integral to all of the work we do here at the Greater Good Initiative. You can do a fellowship in 3 areas: policy, advocacy, or strategy. When you apply to be a policy or advocacy fellow, you can rank the policy sectors that you'd like to be involved in working in. If you want to be a strategy fellow, you'll be doing everything from helping us with social media, development, growth, outreach, partnerships, and all of that good stuff. In policy, you'll be actually physically writing and helping to devise our policy briefs. And in advocacy, you'll be doing a lot of legislator outreach and community outreach to see our policies get passed. If you want to get involved directly with the Time for 9 Toolkit, make sure to apply to be an ambassador. Ambassadors do so much for the campaign. They help us get the message out there as well as do some other things like legislator outreach, writing some emails, social media graphics, and so much more.
Make sure to follow the Time for 9 Toolkit social medias at the Time for 9 Toolkit and the Greater Good Initiative at the Greater Good Initiative. You can also check out our website, thegreatergoodinitiative.com.
The Time for 9 Toolkit is a grassroots advocacy campaign, which means we need you. If you know of any organizations that might want to partner or any public officials that you think might want to endorse, please let us know. DM us on Instagram at Time for 9 Toolkit or email us at contact@thegreatergoodinitiative.com.